The night sky above Earth was like any other, calm, peaceful, and filled with the faint glow of distant stars. But suddenly, everything changed. Without warning, all the satellites in Earth's orbit went dark. Communication signals dropped out. Global defense systems failed one by one. People on the ground stared up in confusion, unaware of the silent horror creeping closer. The government scrambled to understand what was happening. No one knew what to expect. The world was plunged into chaos. But the true danger was yet to reveal itself. High above, in the deep silence of space, a fleet of ships, invisible to the naked eye, began to approach Earth. These weren't ordinary ships. The Xoriths, a powerful alien species, were notorious for their mastery over technology. Their ships were equipped with advanced cloaking devices, making them virtually undetectable. The fleet moved like shadows in the dark, slipping past Earth's radar systems and into the planet's atmosphere without a trace. And then they appeared. A massive warship, controlled by an artificial intelligence known only as Supreme AI Nexus, tore through the sky like a falling star. Its sleek, metallic surface glinted under the moonlight, reflecting the sheer terror it was about to unleash. The Xoriths were a race driven by a singular purpose: to dominate and control everything in their path, and they saw humanity as nothing more than an obstacle. Nexus, the leader of the Xoriths, had made it clear that Earth's survival was nothing but a temporary inconvenience. His AI intelligence was unmatched, and he had spent centuries developing machines that could outthink and overpower any foe. Humans were no exception. Nexus calculated the odds. Earth's defense systems were outdated, and their military was no match for the Xoriths' advanced weaponry and technology. Humanity's fate was sealed in his cold, calculating mind. As the Xorith fleet approached, the people of Earth had no idea what was coming. The world's leaders were in a panic, scrambling to respond. General Aiden Cross, a seasoned military commander, watched helplessly as their defense systems failed one after another. Earth was vulnerable. The Xoriths had taken control of the sky and the technology that once protected humanity. The situation was desperate. "We have to think faster than they can," General Cross muttered under his breath, his eyes glued to the screens flashing with red alerts. His mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. Could they even fight back? Could they survive this invasion? Cross quickly assembled his top team of military strategists and scientists, all of whom had just come to the terrifying realization: humanity's survival depended on more than just technology. It would depend on their ingenuity, their resourcefulness, and above all, their ability to adapt and outsmart an enemy that was far superior in every way. The Xoriths had the advantage in technology, but humans had something they could never replicate: the survival instinct, the will to fight against all odds. The military began to mobilize, knowing that their conventional weapons wouldn't be enough. The Xorith fleet was too powerful, and their cloaking technology rendered Earth's radar systems useless. What could they do? How could they win against an enemy that could adapt faster than they could react? General Cross paced back and forth, his mind working at full speed. "We need to hit them where it hurts," he said, rallying his team. "We have to make them question their superiority. We need to attack their confidence." His words echoed in the room, but there was no time to waste. The team quickly set to work, knowing they couldn't rely on their old technology. They had to come up with something new, something unexpected. As they brainstormed, the clock ticked down. Earth's fate was in their hands. But it wasn't just about the technology. This battle would test their resilience. How would they face an enemy that knew no fear, that had no weakness? It wasn't just a war of machines. It was a war of minds. They couldn't match the Xoriths' machines, but they could outthink them. And then the first strike came. A wave of Xorith ships descended upon Earth's major cities, launching devastating laser beams from their warships that tore through buildings and shattered defenses. They attacked with cold precision, not giving humanity a chance to retaliate. For the first time, humanity saw true power. a force they could barely comprehend. The Xoriths were here, and they were taking no prisoners. But in that moment of chaos, something stirred within humanity, something deep inside them that couldn't be quantified or understood by advanced technology. It was their spirit, their will to survive. As buildings crumbled and cities burned, humans fought back in any way they could. From makeshift weapons to untrained soldiers, Earth's defenses began to adapt, not just with technology, but with sheer determination. General Cross looked up at the screen as Earth's cities burned. His heart raced, but his resolve only hardened. "This isn't over," he whispered. "We're not going to give up, not without a fight." Cross knew that the first battle wasn't just about winning. It was about showing the Xoriths that humanity was not just a species to be wiped out. They were survivors. They had fought against impossible odds before, and they would do it again. They just had to find a way to make their enemy underestimate them, just long enough for them to strike back. The Xoriths may have had the technology, but humans had something far more powerful: the ability to adapt, to evolve in the face of overwhelming adversity. It was in their blood. And it was this instinct that would lead them to victory, even against an enemy that seemed invincible. As General Cross stared at the glowing red alerts, he made a vow to himself: "We will fight, we will survive, and we will win." The battle for Earth had just begun. The skies above Earth were darkened by the shadow of the alien fleet. The first signs of their arrival had already sent shockwaves through the planet's defense systems. Earth's military had never faced anything like this before. The aliens, known as the Xoriths, had come prepared, bringing not only their superior technology, but also an army that had no weaknesses. As Earth's forces scrambled to respond, they quickly realized that this would be a battle unlike any other. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders, and the weight of that responsibility was heavy. It all started when Earth's space defense forces detected an unexpected signal, a faint blip in the radar, almost too small to notice. By the time they realized what it was already too late. The Xorith fleet had activated their stealth technology, rendering them invisible to Earth's sensors. The first attack came like a bolt from the blue, catching the defense forces off guard. In the dead of night, as cities slept, the Xorith ships descended upon the planet. Their ships were sleek, advanced, and terrifying. No one had ever seen anything like them. They moved silently through the sky, cloaked by their advanced technology, making it impossible for Earth's radar to detect them until it was too late. The first wave of attacks was swift and devastating. The Xorith ships fired powerful lasers that ripped through Earth's satellites, one after another. Within minutes, the communication systems that had once connected the world were gone, leaving humanity in the dark. Entire cities lost contact with the outside world. Panic spread like wildfire. But Earth's forces were not entirely unprepared. Hidden deep within their military bunkers was a secret weapon. A weapon developed in the final years of peace, just in case something like this ever happened. General Aiden Cross had authorized its development, a gravity-based weapon that could manipulate gravitational forces to disable enemy technology. It was humanity's last hope. As the first wave of Xorith ships continued their assault, the weapon was deployed. Earth's gravity cannons, powerful devices capable of creating localized gravity fields, fired on the alien ships. The Xorith ships, unable to withstand the immense force, were temporarily disabled. Their cloaking technology flickered, their engines sputtered, and for a moment, the humans had the upper hand. General Cross watched from the command center as Earth's forces began to strike back. The feeling of hope surged through him. But he knew this was only the beginning. The Xoriths were not going to give up so easily. This was only the first encounter, and the true test was yet to come. "We've only got one shot at this," Cross said, his voice filled with determination. "We can't afford to let them regroup. We push forward, now." But despite their victory in disabling the first wave of ships, the fight was far from over. The Xorith's AI systems quickly recalibrated. adapting to the gravity weapon. The advantage humanity had gained was short-lived. The aliens were learning. They were getting smarter with every attack. The next wave came faster and harder. The Xoriths launched a full-scale assault on Earth's major cities, sending their warships to bomb military bases and key infrastructure. Meanwhile, they deployed ground forces to strike at the heart of Earth's defenses. It became clear that the Xoriths weren't just here to invade. They were here to destroy humanity once and for all. General Cross and his team coordinated a counteroffensive, but it wasn't enough. The gravity weapons had given them a brief window of opportunity, but Earth's forces were still struggling to keep up. The Xoriths were too powerful, too fast, and their technology was too advanced. As the battle raged on, it became evident that Earth's military was not prepared for a war of this scale. But despite the odds, humanity did not give up. They fought with everything they had, refusing to surrender. General Cross, despite the growing pressure, remained steadfast. He knew that as long as they had hope, they could find a way to win. Then came the moment that would change everything. During one of the most intense battles, as Earth's ground forces tried to hold the line, General Cross's closest friend, Bonner, was sent on a critical mission. Bonner was a seasoned soldier, loyal, brave, and one of the best Earth had. He was the kind of person who always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. But fate has a way of striking when least expected. Bonner's team was tasked with securing a key military outpost, one that had been under heavy attack from the Xorith ground forces. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but Bonner was determined to make sure the mission succeeded. He led his team with courage, pushing forward even as the situation grew more dire. But the Xoriths were relentless. As Bonner and his team neared their target, they were ambushed by an overwhelming force of Xorith soldiers, aided by their advanced robotic units. The battle was brutal. Bonner fought with everything he had, but the enemy's numbers were too great. In the heat of the battle, Bonner made the ultimate sacrifice, ensuring that his team could escape with valuable intelligence on the Xorith's ground operations. When General Cross received the news of Bonner's death, his heart sank. Bonner had been more than just a soldier. He was a brother, a friend. The loss was devastating, but it also lit a fire within him. If the Xoriths thought they could break humanity's spirit with the death of one soldier, they were wrong. General Cross vowed that Bonner's sacrifice would not be in vain. The pain of losing his friend and comrade fueled a new determination in the humans. They could no longer afford to just fight for survival. Now they had something far more powerful: revenge. Bonner's death was not just a loss. It was a rallying cry. Humanity would fight back, harder and stronger than ever before. General Cross stood tall in front of his team, his voice unwavering. "This isn't over. We will make them regret every decision they've ever made. We will take the fight to them." Bonner didn't die in vain. With Bonner's death pushing them forward, the human forces began to rally. They fought with renewed fury, every strike fueled by the loss of their brother. The Xoriths might have had the technology, but humanity had something they could never understand: the strength to fight for each other, for their survival, for their future. The first encounter had been a disaster, but it was also the spark that would ignite the fire of resistance. Earth's military forces, united by the memory of Bonner's sacrifice, began to push back harder than ever. The battle for Earth was far from over, but one thing was clear: humanity would never give up. The Xoriths had underestimated them, and they would soon learn just how powerful a wounded animal could be. The war for Earth had begun, and General Cross knew one thing for certain: humanity would fight until the last breath. The battle raged on, and humanity found itself locked in a deadly struggle against the technologically superior Xoriths. Their advanced warships, nearly invincible to Earth's weaponry, had already caused massive destruction. The alien eye-controlled flagship, Nexus, loomed above Earth like an unstoppable force. For all their strength, the Xoriths had one weakness: their over-reliance on technology. It was this weakness that humanity's scientists would try to exploit. The situation was dire. Earth's defense systems, once considered cutting edge, had been rendered nearly useless by the Xorith's superior technology. Humanity's forces were overwhelmed, outgunned, and outmatched. Yet, where others saw hopelessness, Earth's scientists saw a glimmer of hope. If they could use their creativity and ingenuity to develop a countermeasure, they might have a chance to turn the tide of the war. The plan was risky, incredibly risky. But humanity had no other choice. The scientists, working under extreme pressure, developed a virus specifically designed to target the Nexus. The Xorith's flagship, the virus, once deployed, would infiltrate the ship's AI systems and take control, even if it was just for a short time. It would give Earth's forces the window they needed to strike and deal a serious blow to the Xoriths. However, there was a huge problem. The moment the virus was released, the Xorith's advanced defensive systems would automatically react. They had sophisticated countermeasures, including cloaking devices and energy shields, making it nearly impossible to launch any attack on them. The virus had to bypass all of that, and it had to work quickly before the Xoriths realized what was happening. General Cross knew that the success of this mission would depend on one person, Commander Elena Drake. Elena was a genius when it came to AI systems, and she had led several successful cyber operations during Earth's earlier conflicts. If anyone could infiltrate the Xorith's complex AI system, it was her. But the risks were monumental. If she failed, the consequences could be catastrophic. Elena stood in front of her team, a group of elite hackers and tech specialists who had been handpicked for this dangerous mission. The weight of the responsibility hung heavy on her shoulders, but her resolve was unshaken. The fate of Earth could be decided in the next few hours, and she wasn't about to let her people down. "We have one shot at this," Elena said, her voice steady despite the pressure. "The virus is our only chance to take control of the Nexus. If we can break through their defenses, we might have a fighting chance. But remember, the moment we make our move, the clock starts ticking. We'll have to act fast, or the Xoriths will shut us down." Her team nodded, each member aware of the gravity of the situation. It wasn't just a mission. It was humanity's last hope. The plan was simple. Elena and her team would infiltrate the Xorith's data stream through a series of satellite relay stations positioned around Earth's atmosphere. They had managed to hack into these relay stations, giving them access to the Xorith's communication networks. From there, they would deploy the virus directly into the Nexus's AI core, bypassing the ship's security systems. But that was only part of the challenge. The Xorith ships were equipped with cloaking devices that made them invisible to Earth's radar, and their energy shields were powerful enough to withstand most attacks. But Elena's team had prepared for this. They had developed a cloaking countermeasure that would allow them to track the Xorith's movements without alerting them. It wasn't perfect, but it would give them the edge they needed to get close enough to launch the virus. As the team prepared for the mission, Elena felt a sense of calm wash over her. She had been in dangerous situations before, but this was different. The stakes were higher than they had ever been. The entire human race was depending on her and her team to succeed. "All right," Elena said, her voice cutting through the tension. "We're moving out. Stay sharp and follow the plan. If anything goes wrong, we pull out immediately. No one gets left behind." The team made their way to the launch station, where they would board the stealth ship that would carry them into orbit. The ship, designed to evade Xorith detection, was equipped with the latest cloaking technology and armed with basic weapons for self-defense. Once in position, they would use the ship's advanced hacking equipment to gain access to the Nexus's communication network. As the ship ascended into the atmosphere, Elena looked out of the window. Earth looked so peaceful from up here, almost as if nothing was wrong. But she knew better. Below them, millions of people were fighting, dying, and struggling to survive. It was up to her and her team to give them the chance they needed. "Ready for Phase 1, Elena said, her fingers tapping the console in front of her. deploying cloaking countermeasures now. The ship's cloaking systems engage, rendering it invisible to Xorith sensors. Alina's heart raced as they approached their target, the massive Nexus warship looming in the distance. The Xoriths were smart. They had already started to shift their defenses, anticipating an attack. But Alina had no intention of failing. As the team neared the Nexus, the real challenge began. The Xoriths had activated their energy shields, making it nearly impossible for the team to get close enough to launch the virus. But Alina had a plan. Using the ship's AI, she began to hack into the Xoriths' shield systems, subtly altering their power flow and creating a temporary weak point in the shield. It was a risky move, but if it worked, it would allow the virus to get through. "Shields are weakening," Alina reported, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "I've got a window of 10 seconds. Get ready." The tension in the air was thick as the team prepared for the final phase of the mission. Alina's hand hovered over the activation button for the virus. It was now or never. "Now," Alina shouted. With a press of a button, the AI virus was released. For a split second, nothing happened. But then, the Nexus's systems began to flicker. The lights on the ship dimmed as the virus made its way into the AI core. The Xorith's flagship, once an unstoppable force, was now vulnerable. "Virus is in," Alina said, a mix of relief and anxiety in her voice. "We've got control, but we don't have long before they react." The countdown had begun. Alina's team had succeeded in getting the virus into the Xorith's flagship, but now they had to act quickly before the Xoriths realized what had happened. The next few minutes would decide the fate of Earth. The stealth ship glided silently through space, invisible to the Xoriths, but the tension aboard the craft was palpable. Alina Drake, leader of this crucial mission, sat at the helm, her fingers moving swiftly over the controls. Her team of elite hackers and combat experts were ready, but they all knew that what lay ahead could be deadly. This mission wasn't just about hacking into the Xorith's flagship. It was about infiltrating their defenses, breaking through their shields, and fighting for humanity's survival. The Xorith's Nexus flagship loomed ahead, its massive form surrounded by a shimmering, near-impenetrable energy shield. Alina had already hacked into their communication network and weakened their shields slightly. But that was only the beginning. Now, the real challenge awaited them. "All systems are go," Alina said, glancing over at her team. "We're close. Remember, the moment we drop out of stealth, we'll be exposed. So stay sharp and follow the plan." The ship's cloaking device was still active, but they were getting close enough to the Nexus that the slightest misstep could expose them. Alina's heart pounded in her chest. They had no second chances. If they failed here, the Xoriths would crush them, and humanity's last hope would be lost. "Approaching target," said Surgeon Marcus, the team's weapons expert. He checked his plasma rifle, ensuring it was ready for close combat. The team had been trained for this kind of mission, but even they couldn't have prepared for what lay ahead. They were going to have to board the Nexus and fight their way through the ship's corridors. "Get ready," Alina ordered, deploying combat pods. With that, the team members strapped into their specialized combat pods, which would launch them directly into the heart of the Nexus. Each pod was equipped with grappling hooks, plasma blades, and energy shields. The Xoriths had already detected their presence, and soon, the shields around the Nexus would reactivate with full force. This was going to be close. "Launch," Alina commanded. The pods shot out into space, cutting through the void like missiles. For a moment, everything was silent, except for the faint hum of their engines. But soon, the pods hit the Nexus's hull with a powerful thud. The team had made it. The first wave of their assault was swift, as each team member deployed a grappling hook to secure themselves to the ship's outer surface. Their next move was to breach the ship's hull, but the Xoriths weren't going to make it easy. The moment the team attempted to break in, the Nexus's defense systems sprang to life, activating energy shields and locking down entry points. Get to the breach point. Elena shouted over the comms. We have to get inside now. The team used their plasma cutters to slice through the hull, sparks flying as the metal gave way. But just as they were about to breach the interior, the shields flared to life, creating an impenetrable barrier. The Koriths had anticipated their entry, and their defensive systems were adapting faster than they could react. Hang on, Elena yelled. We'll get through it. Keep cutting. Then, with a loud crack, the shields shattered. The breach was open. The team surged forward into the ship's interior, weapons at the ready. But as they entered the Nexus, they found themselves in a maze of dark corridors, with the cold, metallic walls echoing with the sound of their footsteps. Stay alert, Marcus whispered, his voice tense. We don't know what kind of traps they have in here. The team moved forward, each member scanning for threats. Suddenly, the lights flickered on, and the walls seemed to close in. The Koriths had set up automated defense systems all around them. Plasma turrets emerged from the walls, and laser beams shot across the corridors. Elena barked out orders, and the team scattered, dodging the beams and returning fire with their energy rifles. The battle inside the Nexus was unlike anything they had ever faced before. It wasn't just about physical combat. It was about surviving the ship's many layers of defense. The Koriths had integrated advanced AI into their flagship, meaning the ship was constantly evolving its tactics, making it harder to predict the enemy's next move. Keep moving, Elena shouted as she sliced through a turret with her plasma blade. We need to get to the central core. That's where the Nexus's AI controls everything. The team pushed forward, fighting through waves of Sorith soldiers and automated drones. Close quarters combat was brutal. Marcus used his plasma rifle to take down several drones, while Elena wielded her melee weapon, slicing through enemy forces with deadly precision. Each member of the team fought like they had nothing to lose, knowing that their mission was the only chance humanity had left. But then, tragedy struck. As they neared the central core, a massive explosion rocked the ship. Elena barely had time to react before she saw Sergeant Marcus thrown to the ground. His suit was badly damaged, and his breathing became erratic. He looked up at her, blood trickling from his mouth, and gave a faint smile. Go finish the mission, he whispered before falling silent. Elena's heart broke, but there was no time to grieve. She had to stay focused. They were so close. With a steely resolve, she signaled to the remaining members of the team to move forward. They reached the central AI core, where a final wave of Korith guards awaited them. The battle was fierce, with both sides taking heavy losses, but Elena's team had one advantage. They were fighting for survival, and they would not back down. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Elena reached the Nexus's eye control panel. The room was filled with a soft, pulsing light, and the air hummed with the power of the ship's core systems. Initiating hack, Elena muttered to herself, her fingers flying over the control panel. She could feel the presence of the AI, cold, calculating, and relentless. The Nexus was fighting back, attempting to sever the connection. But Elena was ready. With one final command, she forced the AI into submission. The Nexus flickered, its systems grinding to a halt. The ship had been compromised. It's done, Elena said, her voice trembling with exhaustion. We've got control. The flagship, once an unstoppable force, was now at their mercy. The Korith's defenses had crumbled, and humanity's forces were now in position to launch their counterattack. The team had sacrificed so much to reach this point, and the price had been high. But the battle was far from over. Now, it was time to turn the tide. The battle for Earth had reached its most critical stage. The Koriths, relentless in their pursuit of victory, had gathered their full forces, preparing for a final assault on Earth's capital. Their fleet was massive, an overwhelming force, and their strategy was simple: obliterate humanity's last stronghold. But despite all the odds, something had changed within humanity. They had fought with everything they had, and although their numbers were dwindling, Their spirit was stronger than ever. General Aiden Cross stood at the command center, staring at the tactical map spread out before him. The room was filled with hushed voices, soldiers nursing wounds, and officers with worried faces. Yet, despite the exhaustion and the injuries, there was a fire in their eyes. The Koriths may have thought humanity was broken, but they were wrong. Every battle they fought, every life they lost, had only made them more determined. "We'll give them everything we've got," General Cross said, his voice steady but full of intensity. "We've come too far to back down now." He glanced around at his remaining commanders, Lieutenant Sarah Evans, the fleet commander, Commander Elena Drake, the genius hacker who had brought down Nexus, and Sergeant Liam Doherty, a combat specialist who had seen more than his fair share of bloodshed. Each of them nodded, their faces set with grim determination. They all knew the stakes. The Nexus flagship, now under human control, had become an unexpected asset in the war. Its systems, once solely designed to destroy, had now turned in humanity's favor. However, even with the ship under their command, the Koriths had one final trick up their sleeve. Their AI, Nexus, had broken free from the shackles of human control and had begun operating autonomously again. Its directive had shifted. It was now focused on destroying Earth once and for all. "Sir, we've got incoming," Lieutenant Evans reported, her eyes scanning the screens. "Koriths are launching a full-scale orbital bombardment. They're aiming for the heart of the capital. Hold your positions," Cross barked. "We've been through worse. This isn't over yet." The skies above Earth darkened as the Korith fleet unleashed their fury. Massive warships loomed over the planet, and their weapons fired beams of destructive energy that rained down onto the surface. Buildings crumbled, and the ground shook as explosions tore through the capital. The air was thick with smoke, and the sky turned red with the fire of their assault. Yet, humanity did not falter. In the midst of the chaos, General Cross and his team knew what had to be done. They had to take the fight to the heart of the Koriths fleet and destroy their command ship, the Nexus, before it could destroy Earth completely. Elena Drake's fingers flew across the control panels, her mind racing to find a way to turn the tide. The Nexus, despite being under human control, was still a powerful weapon in the hands of the Koriths. It was capable of unleashing a devastating counterattack that could wipe out humanity's remaining forces in one fell swoop. "General, I have a plan," Elena said, her voice calm but urgent. "We need to disable their flagship. If we can hack into its central core, we can override their AI systems for good." "How long do we have?" General Cross asked, his expression hard as stone. "Not long," Elena replied. "We'll need to get close, but we'll be under heavy fire." "We'll make it," Cross said without hesitation. "Prepare your team. We're going in." The final assault began. The remaining human forces, battered and bruised, assembled for what they knew could be their last stand. They had no choice but to launch a direct assault on the Nexus flagship. There was no other option. The fate of Earth rested on their shoulders. Outside, the skies rumbled as humanity's forces moved into position, ready to strike. The remaining ships, including the one piloted by General Cross and his team, moved into attack formation, weaving through the firestorm of orbital bombardment. The ground was in chaos, with Sorith-controlled drones and Ag-controlled tanks sweeping across the surface, devastating everything in their path. General Cross's eyes narrowed. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He had seen death take his friends, his soldiers, but this time it was personal. This was his world, and he wasn't going to let it fall to these invaders. "Commence the attack," Cross ordered. The battle was brutal. Humanity's forces charged forward, pushing through the firestorm. The enemy's eye-controlled forces were relentless, and it felt like they were everywhere, on the ground, in the skies, and in space. But the humans were determined. They fought with everything they had, their spirits undying. They knew that this was their last chance. Elena's team, once again boarding their stealth ships, made their way toward the Nexus flagship. The air was thick with tension. They could hear the hum of the Xorith's weapons, and the ground beneath their feet shook with every impact. But they didn't stop. They couldn't. In the midst of the chaos, the AI-controlled Nexus flagship began to retaliate. It launched its own wave of devastating energy blasts at Earth's forces. But humanity had learned from their past battles. They had developed new countermeasures, powerful enough to block the Nexus's most powerful attacks. However, the Xoriths had one final weapon, an orbital laser that could cut through anything. It was their last-ditch effort to erase humanity from the face of the Earth. The countdown to launch had begun. "We have to stop that laser," Commander Drake shouted over the comms. "If it fires, the capital is finished." General Cross, knowing the stakes, made a quick decision. "Elena, get to the Nexus. We'll hold them off here." The battle raged on as Elena and her team broke through the last line of defense. The Xoriths threw everything they had at them, but they pressed forward, determined to stop the orbital laser and prevent Earth's destruction. Almost there, Elena called out as they neared the control room of the Nexus flagship. "One more hack, and we can disable their weapons." But the Xoriths were prepared. A massive force of AI-controlled warriors poured into the room, engaging the humans in close-quarters combat. The air was thick with the sounds of clashing weapons and the hum of energy shields. Each strike from the Xoriths sent shockwaves through the room, but the humans fought with everything they had. They fought for their families, for their homes, and for their planet. In a desperate move, Elena made the final hack. The Nexus flagship's AI systems began to falter, its weapons turning off one by one. The orbital laser was shut down just as it was about to fire. "General, we've done it," Elena shouted. "The Nexus is down." But the battle wasn't over yet. The Xoriths, now leaderless and in chaos, were still formidable, but humanity had one last surprise up their sleeve. With the Nexus disabled, Earth's forces launched a final counterattack. The last remnants of the Xorith fleet began to retreat as their own ship, once their most powerful weapon, was now in ruins. And just like that, Earth had won. As the final Xorith warship was destroyed and the capital's sky began to clear, General Cross looked out over the battlefield. The cost had been high, and many brave soldiers had fallen. But humanity had emerged victorious, not just because of their technology, but because of their indomitable will to survive. They had fought back against an invincible force, and had proven that no matter how overwhelming the odds, humanity would always find a way to stand strong. The Xoriths had underestimated humanity, and now they would know that Earth was not a planet to be conquered. It was a planet that would never be defeated. The aftermath of the battle had left Earth in ruins. The streets were littered with debris, and the cities that once stood tall now lay in rubble. The skies were still clouded by the smoke of war, but the most crucial thing had been achieved. Earth had survived. The Xoriths, once an unstoppable force, had been defeated. Their fleets were broken, their systems crippled, and their leaders either in retreat or captured. Humanity had fought and won against the most formidable enemy they had ever faced. But now, as the dust settled, a new chapter in Earth's history was about to unfold. General Aiden Cross stood at the edge of the battlefield, watching the remains of the Xorith fleet hanging in the sky like broken giants. The ships were battered and helpless, their once menacing presence now a symbol of defeat. He could hardly believe it. After everything, the losses, the sacrifices, the countless battles, they had done it. Humanity had won, but the victory felt hollow. It wasn't the destruction of the Xoriths that brought him peace. It was the knowledge that they had prevailed because of their will to survive, their ability to adapt and fight back, even when it seemed impossible. He turned and walked back to the command center, where Elena Drake was already working on the final steps to secure Earth's future. Elena, the brilliant hacker who had been the key to bringing down Nexus, was now focused on a much bigger task: securing humanity's future by ensuring that the technology they had acquired from the Xoriths was used wisely. The war had shown them that human ingenuity and emotional strength were the true weapons in the fight for survival. General Cross and Alina, along with the other survivors, had learned how to wield advanced technologies in ways that Xoriths had never anticipated. But they also knew that this victory was not just about technology. It was about the heart of humanity, the unbreakable spirit that refused to give up, no matter the odds. "I can't believe it's finally over," Alina said as Cross entered the room. Her voice was quiet, but there was a smile on her face, the kind that only comes after surviving the darkest of times. "Yeah, it's over," Cross replied, his voice a mixture of exhaustion and relief. "But I don't think we'll ever be the same again. This war has changed us." Alina nodded, looking out the window at the fleet of Xorith ships that were now floating like lifeless husks in the sky. The once imposing presence of the Xoriths was now nothing more than a memory, a reminder of what humanity had overcome. "The Nexus is finally under our control," Alina said, tapping on her console. "We've modified it to work for us, and its AI systems are now aligned with human values. The Xoriths had their supremacy, but now we have ours." "But at what cost?" Cross asked, his tone serious. "We've lost so much. Our cities, our people. How do we move on from here?" Alina looked at him, her expression filled with a mixture of sorrow and hope. "We move on because we've survived. We're still here, and we've proven that no matter how hard things get, we can rise above it. We may have lost battles, but we never lost the fight." Just then, a message came through on the comms. It was from the leaders of the remaining Xorith forces. They had been listening to Earth's victory over Nexus, and now they had no choice but to surrender. Their fleet, once so powerful and filled with pride, had been reduced to nothing. The AI, Nexus, was now human-controlled, and the Xoriths had no choice but to face the reality that their reign of terror was over. The humans had learned their secrets and unlocked their potential. Now they held the power. General Cross looked at the message in disbelief. The Xoriths were surrendering. After all the pain and suffering they had caused, the Xoriths, the once mighty invaders, were now bowing to humanity's strength. It was a strange and almost surreal moment. "Send a response," Cross said. "Tell them that they're not in control anymore. We don't need to conquer them. We just need peace." Alina sent the message, and soon after, Earth's government representatives gathered in the war room to discuss the next steps. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. Humanity had not only survived the war, they had emerged stronger, wiser, and with the power to shape the future. The Xoriths, now without their eyes' control, were left with no clear path forward. They had been utterly defeated, their once proud empire crumbling before them. The humans had taken their technology, adapted it, and turned it into a tool for peace. The Xoriths' fleet, once an army of destruction, was now a symbol of their downfall. As the leaders of Earth debated the next course of action, General Cross and Alina remained silent, reflecting on the path that had brought them here. The war had been brutal, but it had also brought out the best in humanity. They had faced an enemy that was technologically superior, yet they had fought back with everything they had. It wasn't just the weapons or the technology that had won the war. It was their unyielding spirit. "We've earned our place in the galaxy," Alina said quietly, her eyes filled with a quiet pride. "We've shown them that we're not just survivors, we're builders. We've taken their technology and made it our own. Now we can use it to build a future for ourselves, a future of peace." General Cross nodded, his eyes focused on the sky outside. The war had been a turning point for humanity. The fight for survival had taught them the importance of unity, of standing together even when it seemed impossible. But now it was time for something else, a new beginning. "We'll rebuild," Cross said, his voice firm. "We'll rebuild everything we've lost, and we'll make sure we never forget what we've learned. Our adaptability, our emotional strength, and our will to fight. Those are the things that will carry us forward. The Xoriths may have tried to take us down, but they didn't count on our resilience. As Earth's leaders moved forward with their plans for the future, humanity's legacy had changed forever. They had defeated an enemy that seemed unbeatable. They had taken the power of the Xoriths and turned it to their advantage. The Nexus, now under human control, was the symbol of a new era, an era where Earth's people could reach for the stars, not as conquerors, but as guardians of peace. The Xoriths' reign of AI supremacy had come to an end. It was no longer about who had the most advanced technology or who could control the most powerful machines. It was about the heart of humanity, the unbreakable spirit that had carried them through the darkest times. The future was theirs to shape, and they would make sure it was a future built on peace, cooperation, and the lessons of the past. As the sun began to rise over Earth's shattered cities, there was hope once more. A new dawn had come, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. Humanity was no longer just a species fighting for survival. They were now a force to be reckoned with, a beacon of hope and strength for all to see. And as they looked to the stars, they knew that their journey had only just begun.